Hello and welcome to another episode of the Baseline Scoop. I'm your host, Zach Chavalella, here as always with my guy, Justin Crosby. Justin, how you doing today?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good. We had some round ball.
Yeah, exciting night. We're going to talk today on today's show about the first preseason game for the Sixers against the Brooklyn Nets, Ben Simmons' return, and a lot about what's going on with this roster heading into the regular season. So, all that and more on this episode of the Baseline Scoop.
It's 89-84. Sixers, and they get inside. Unbelievable. Julius Erving put it hanging underneath. He was trapped. Going to the right side. Julius in the air, palming over the right hand. Floating, reaching, and spinning it in. Watch this fantastic move by the Doctor.
All right, and welcome again to another episode of the Baseline Scoop. Zach Chavalella here with Justin Crosby for Philly Sports Network. Sixers season is back. Justin, how awesome was last night, first of all?
It was good to finally see the guys back on the court. Although we didn't get a chance to see Embiid or Harden or Tucker or House, but it was still good to see the guys back on the court. And it was actually good to see, just Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris lead a squad. It kind of feels like a little bench, maybe like a bench squad thing when the regular season starts, see how they play together. So it was definitely good to see.
Yeah, it didn't have Harden, didn't have Embiid, PJ Tucker, and Daniel House, of course. But against the Brooklyn Nets with Ben Simmons, with Kyrie Irving, with Kevin Durant, didn't need them. Yeah, they did not have they did not have James Harden, rather, Joel Embiid. They did not have PJ Tucker. They did not have Daniel House. And yet, against the Brooklyn Nets team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Ben Simmons, it didn't matter. It's a preseason game. Obviously, take that, with a grain of salt. But the team looked pretty impressive, all things considered. And a big part of that was they really kind of showed off their depth. So before we kind of get into that depth, what really impressed you the most from last night's, I should say, game?
What impressed me, a couple things. Well, what impressed me the most was Tyrese Maxey, of course. Is like this guy continues to just show all the hard work that he puts in. And it shows on the court. Like you see all these videos, you hear these stories, you hear everybody saying, "Oh, he's trying to lock him out the gym," and all. It's just like you just see the improvement of him, and just like these next steps that he's taking. And like he's always shown no fear, but it's just like he knows. Like I feel like he's starting to feel like I'm that guy. You know what I mean? Like that. Like I can do this at a high level. And that was really, really, really good to see.
Yeah, he really took over and was dominant early on. He scored, was it the first 8-10 points for the Sixers? Was an unbelievable tear. And here for those watching on YouTube, some of the highlights of Tyrese Maxey, and we're talking about pull-up transition threes, like that level of aggression. That's exactly what is going to be needed of Maxey, to really kind of take that next step. People have been wondering, from year one to year two, he took such a big leap. Does he have that in him again? Do we have a 2 to 3 year leap? Or have we seen the zenith of what is Tyrese Maxey, which I don't think that's been the popular opinion, but by showing this aggression, that was the trait that he really needed to kind of take his game to the next level, because the shooting was phenomenal last year. The other thing that he did display this last night, but he's going to need to improve to kind of take his game again to the next level, his ability as a facilitator. But all in all, like the core focus of what he needs to be better, he just needs to be more aggressive. He's doing all the right things already. Become more aggressive, and then work a little bit, on the fringe on your facilitating, your defensive ability.
And the aggressiveness is going to create those easier facilitation lanes for those guys, like specifically for Maxey when he's driving to the hole. And definitely I feel like depending on who he's playing with, whoever's at that 4 or that 5, like especially when he's aggressive going to the hole, I think he'll be able to really find some drop-off passes for these guys to get these easy dunks or layups, which is really good. And another part of his development is when he drives now hard, the strong side help is going to probably step in, and that pass to the corner to whoever's in the corner is going to be big too. But you know, I just think that it's nothing this kid can't do. And I know it's a preseason, I know, but I think that we've seen the work. We've heard about the stories. I think that it's going to continue. I think he's going to continue to get better. And let's not talk about how Maxey's made the leap already. Let's talk about the leap he made throughout the season in general. Yeah. So this is just this Maxey right now, but once he gets into the season, he figures out how guys are playing him, then he's going to make more adjustments to make him better, to make him more efficient. So that's why I think that I just can't wait to see this kid in action.
Yeah, you're right. He not only did he come into the year last season better, but he continued to progress during the season. And with James Harden, his scoring numbers were a little bit down, averaging 18 points per game, with Harden in games played with Harden. But if you look at his, I don't know, forgive me, actually, it was even up a little bit, but his efficiency was what was completely killer. He shot 51.5% from the field, 50% from three, 84.7% from highline. 50% from three is insane. Can we talk about that for a second? That's on 5.2 threes a game. That is absolutely insane. So if you take a guy like that, you add a little bit more aggression to him, like we've been talking about. And granted, the percentage is going to go down. He's not going to shoot 50% over a season. Even still, if you take that aggression, you multiply those attempts, get him a little more active. We saw a lot of the pull-up threes last night, in transition, and that's going to be a bigger part of the game. Those scoring numbers are absolutely going to go up. Then you talk about him as one of the backup facilitators. Watching him and D'Anthony Melton last night, Melton is capable with the ball. He's nothing special with the ball in his hands. That's I don't mean to knock the guy, but it's not his role. It's not what he does, So if you are looking at a Maxey Melton backcourt, which I think that you may see from time to time, you're going to be seeing more of a Maxey ball dominant kind of role, as you should. When that happens, let's say Paul Reed or Montrezl Harrell's in there with him, and you start learning how to run the pick and roll from none other than James Harden. Just imagine how far Maxey's going to be as a complete offensive player from now to the end of the year. I can't even say. I want to have some composure in it. I don't want to, jump the shark or anything like that. But to be honest, there's all-star potential this year. Now, there's a lot of great players in the East. Donovan Mitchell's now a Cleveland Cavalier. That's going to affect the guard pool for all-stars. But he can have an all-star caliber season. There's no doubt in my mind.
I definitely agree with you with everything you said, and specifically about the all-star thing. But like you said, Donovan Mitchell's here, so it definitely affects the pool. And Simmons is back, so he counts as a thing. And I'm not saying Simmons is going to be an all-star, but
he played backup center last night. Who knows? Yeah, he's coming. DeMar DeRozan was a guard last year. Ben Simmons could take literally any spot.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but definitely Maxey was definitely a good sight to see, as well as one thing that really stood out to me was Tobias' quick trigger. We talk about how Tobias needs to be quick trigger three, and how he even talked about struggling with that at the end of last year, understanding that's his role, and just in general, he has to do that. It was really good to see him not think about it and just shoot. And also, he came off a pin down and shot it with a contest in his face. I'm like, I've never seen Tobias catch a pass off a pin down and shoot it with a closeout. And he made it. I'm just like, those are the things that we have to see from him in order to just, one, improve his 3-point. I mean, he's a good 3-point shooter, but just more attempts, more aggressive, more respect. So then, all right, cool. They know that you're going to shoot it and you're going to quick shoot it. then you can work on your downhill game. Or if you got a mismatch, off that pin down, and you somehow in the guard, all right, we'll throw it down to you on the post and let you get your mid post work in. But like those were some good sights to see from Tobias Harris.
Yeah, no, I think that you really did see that quick trigger, like you mentioned with Harris. That's the thing that we're kind of looking for this season. Tobias Harris is not going to be doing a lot of what he's done in the past. He's not going to be asked to be. And I think that while Harris would likely enjoy more opportunity to kind of instigate the offense, I think it's better for him. It's definitely better for the Sixers if he plays that kind of ancillary quick trigger three, almost like super Danny Green type role. So I think that's kind of more what you're looking for Tobias Harris, ideally this season. He did exhibit, an evolution closer to that last night. It's the preseason. Joel, James, they're not there. Okay. It's not what the Sixers offense is going to look like during the regular season. However, I definitely did like what I saw from Tobias Harris. I liked what I saw from a lot of the different guys last night. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey we've talked about. We've talked about now Tobias Harris as well. One guy who I'm thrilled with what I saw. How about Paul Reed starting the game at center? 10 points, 5 rebounds, energetic as anything. I mean, what did you see from Reed that really stuck out to you?
I just liked Reed's like tenacity and energy, and we'll talk about another Sixer who provided energy as well. But like just seeing him on the pick and rolls and the switches or little screens where like guards are popping out, and he's just like shuffling his feet, just hype as hell, 1 through 5. Like, and I'm like, that's the energy you need because like to me, like, and I didn't play pro ball or anything like that, but just even when you playing rec ball or high school, or whatever, it's like the guy whose hype is the most annoying. And he may not be better than you, he may not be the best defensively, but just his energy can take you out of your groove. Now, Kevin Durant, he no matter how energetic you are, he go get his shot off and he's probably gonna make it. But some other guys will be affected by that. And I love to see him getting in there for the rebounds, hustling, switching on defense. To me, that shows like he's working on that ability, like to be something different than past backup centers for this team. Because clearly he's fighting for the backup center role. But I mean, Andre Drummond, Dwight Howard, these guys aren't switching out on fives or they're playing drop coverage. I didn't see them play drop coverage with Paul Reed. They did a lot of switch stuff or pass offs or whatever, like, whatever the case may be. I like that a lot. That changes the defensive scheme up. So that was good to see from him.
Yeah, no, he's a significantly better on-ball defender than any backup center that Joel Embiid has seen. And I'm not counting Al Horford for 2 reasons. One, he played power forward when he was here. 2, he also did not really play when he was here. So for those 2 reasons, he doesn't really count. But Paul Reed definitely, as far as backup bigs for Joel Embiid, this is like a new era of backup big that we're looking at. A lot of the frustrations from DeAndre Jordan, that type, the Greg Monroe, Amir Johnson, like that, and not that Dwight or even Andre Drummond were perfect, though. Andre Drummond, I think was I loved having Andre Drummond. He was one of the best that they've had at the backup center. Paul Reed is much more of a playoff backup big.
Versatile.
So, what's that?
That's the key word, versatile.
Yeah, exactly. He's just way more versatile, and to be able to have him be the that primary backup big for those kind of situations, and then you're talking about his versatility. He's been playing a lot of power forward too. So what he showed last night, in addition to an ability to play center consistently, is that he can play power forward next to Montrezl Harrell. And that's huge. That's going to be huge for the Sixers. If they have the ability to put out Paul Reed and Montrezl Harrell, I mean, you're talking about being able to save both PJ Tucker and Joel Embiid from a lot of minutes and miles that just aren't necessary otherwise.
Right. And, that front court energy and hypeness, oh my gosh, because that leads me to kind of, if it's okay, we move on from Paul Reed, like Montrezl Harrell, like just from the rip, like it's annoying to watch him play when he's on the other team because he's jawing from the beginning. extra stuff. He felt like somebody fouled him. He fell to the ground. The guy tries to help out, like Patty Mills or somebody tried to help him up. He like, get off me, like wait for my team to come. It's just like all the extra possessions he got on offensive rebounds to hustle the motor. And I just feel like it's not saying again, like something again. I mean, DeAndre Jordan was a corpse, but the other two guys, like, you know, we talk about Andre Drummond being a good rebounder, but he was not a good finisher. How tall he was, he's not a good finisher. And I just feel like his game, Montrezl Harrell's game, is that motor is just something that we really need. That energy, that toughness is something we really need. And they were doing some like back screens and stuff like that for what they do for Embiid to get Montrezl Harrell in the switch. If he got a switch or whatever, to put him in the post and let him go to work. And he has good post moves, you know, and energy when he goes to the rim. So it was really like, I really liked his energy. And I really was like, you know, we talk about Montrezl Harrell versus Paul Reed and the backup center situation, but it just seems like to me like it's better having both those guys to tag team that role is better than just having one of those guys, because literally depending on the matchup, depending on whatever's happening, you can go with Paul Reed, or if we need a little bit more juice on offense, you can go with Montrezl Harrell. And both those guys are going to make their presence felt on the court. So, you know, I like Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah. No, you talk about the energy and physicality that he plays with. You know, he's going to the rim, and he draws a lot more contact. And Brian Toporek actually mentioned this on Twitter, but he was saying that, you know, he underrated this about Montrezl Harrell. I think that's what a lot of people have done, including myself. Just the amount of attention that he draws inside, and the free throws actually that he draws just with his activity around the basket. So between his increased physicality down low and ability to draw that contact, and the fact that he's an improved free throw shooter over Andre Drummond, over Dwight Howard, you know, you're really talking about a guy who's going to be able to impact the game in a variety of different ways. You know, he's a better shooter from range. Not that he's going to be confused for, you know, Karl Anthony Towns or Steph Curry or anything like that out there, but he's a better shooter from range than some of the past Sixers bigs. He's more energetic than a lot of them. Anyone pretty much not named Paul Reed. His rebounding ability is I would say still very high. Obviously, Andre Drummond is a weird rebounder though, because he doesn't. Harrell commands rebounds, whereas Drummond collects rebounds. You know, so
tipping them in the air and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know,
and when he had that one game, he had, I don't know, was it 25 rebounds, whatever it was. I was like, how
Yeah.
the hell did he get 25 rebounds?
I mean, so you can argue that, like, if Drummond gets 15 and Harrell gets 10, right? Let's just use, you know, easy numbers here. But if Drummond gets 15 rebounds and Harrell gets 10, there's an argument that those 10 rebounds could be more impactful than Drummond's 15, you know? So that just speaks to, you know, the effort and energy level that Harrell displays, and how that can turn into transition opportunities for the Sixers. You know, you talk about his ability as an offensive rebounder, and you know, ability to then kick it back out, you know, as opposed to just kind of Moses Maloning the ball up there, you know, getting your own rebound time and time again, you know. So Montrezl Harrell, definitely a lot that I was impressed with. Another one of the new additions for the Sixers that I was impressed with, at least defensively, was DeAnthony Melton. Dude's a menace, right? He only played 17 minutes. He didn't score a lot. His offense looked, you know, kind of shaky. It's just kind of how it's going to be until he gets into kind of a rhythm. And he's a support player offensively. That's not necessarily what he's not going to be out here dropping 20 points to the Sixers night in, night out. Like, that's not the role he's here for. But, and it's a big, big but, like, he absolutely is a pest for other guards. And that's something that the Sixers have struggled with, you know, in the past, you know, whether it's been Kemba Walker, you know, if you talk about like Damian Lillard, like guys who have completely just gone off on the Sixers, to have DeAnthony Melton, and I saw Jackson Frank mention this as well, but just to have him on those kind of, like, in Jackson's words, crafty guards, this is a kind of niche defensive role that the Sixers have not had. I mean, the closest that you go back to is what, like TJ McConnell, and it's a completely different level of that.
And Matisse isn't the best I mean, Matisse is a good defender, and he has shut down some guards, but he's also gotten really cooked by some guards because
Yeah.
he like jumps at everything, jumps all the
Yeah.
pump fakes. Melton is just, I think defensively, his defensive IQ on ball is better. Like
Yeah.
Matisse is a better off ball defender, I think, getting in passing lane, sneaking steals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think that, Melton's on ball defense, his tenacity, his ability that he's really going to like, you could tell that he's going to start in some situations, he's going to pick up 94 feet.
Yeah.
Depending on, matchup or whatever the case may be. So that'll be definitely something good to see. And I do think his offense is going to come along. Like, we're forgetting that, like, although he was trying to get in where he fit in, when he fits in and, in his first preseason game, but let's not forget that he's going to be playing either with James Harden or Joel Embiid, and they'll allow for more open looks for him where he'll be wide open and he'll get some good shots. So I'm not really worried about his offense, but defensively it's something that the Sixers definitely need.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Thibault, and I guess we'll get to him now as well. First of all, yeah, he's a much better off-ball defender than on-ball. Exactly like you said. He's a big risk taker, That comes both with, when he's playing the lanes trying to get a steal, and also he gets blown by so often. But what he can do that so few players can do is recover and block the shot.
Yes.
And
I think I think that he gets blown by on purpose, but for him, he specifically, like, some of his tactics that allow him to get blown by, to him, he feels like it's okay because if I'm a step behind, I'm gonna get that block. And he gets it a lot though.
He does, to his defense. It's part of why he is such a well-respected defender across the league, because it's and I really don't want to sound like I'm taking anything away from Tease, but it's flashy, so it leads to people overrating him at times and thinking that he's some stalwart on-ball defender, like he's the glove or something like that.
Right.
And that's just not it.
Right, because like I remember one play that really sticks out to me from last year is when they were playing the Sacramento Kings in Sacramento, when like everybody was down, hurt, or COVID or something, and Tyrese Halliburton tried to throw a quick no-look like pass up the court to like Harrison Barnes or somebody, and all of a sudden Tease is guarding him, but just jumps up out of nowhere and grabs it and then like gets it for like a dunk or something like that. And I was just like, oh, like you don't really see that from guys.
No. And he is a very good defender at what he does defensively. He's different than a guy like Patrick Beverly, than a guy like
like cornerbacks. He's
that's
a
exactly
zone corner.
He's a good zone corner. He's Trayvon. We're back here. Matisse Thybulle's Trayvon Diggs. That's it. He's gonna get burnt. He's gonna give up a lot of yards, but he's gonna get you a lot of turnovers too. And that's why he has value in the league. So Thybulle. People weren't watching his defense last night. That wasn't why people were paying attention to Matisse Thybulle. It was all about offense for him.
Yes.
And I believe he knocked down, if it wasn't his first three, it was his second. And the form's different. It looked nice. It went in. And then he did not score another point for the rest of the game. All in all, he played a total of 19 minutes. Again, he's not there for his scoring role. It's still like it could have been better. It could have been a better night for Matisse Thybulle overall, I think. But at least from like the look of the jump shot, that I do feel a little bit better compared to, how I felt last season.
I mean, fans are still going to hold their breath every time he shoots.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's just it. I mean, he's 1 of 4 last night, 1 of 3 from 3. He shoots 33% from 3. That's not awful, but the 1 of 4 from the field. But that's the thing too, is that he's not, until James Harden's in there, he's not taking a lot of shots, period. But he's not taking a lot of shots away from the 3-point line until Harden's in there. Because with Harden, that's when you kind of run Thybulle in the dunker spot. You run a lot of cuts with him. And he becomes a little bit more efficient overall as an offensive player. But I really don't want to judge Thybulle too much until I see him with Harden, because that's how that's how I expect him at his best, is when he's playing with James Harden. His stats with Harden last season were vastly improved over without. So Doc Rivers has to find a way to run him with James Harden and without Joel Embiid. And everyone's going to be a lot better for it, okay? That has to be a absolute, focal point for when you're thinking about how you're divvying up guys on your splits, because it's just the numbers are staring you right in the face that he does not play well with Joel Embiid, and he plays very well with James Harden. So Thibel's not going to be a starter on this team, more than likely. I think it's pretty clear the starters right now are going to be Harden, Maxey, Harris, Tucker, depending on. I don't think there's an actual power forward, small forward position. I think it's just two forwards. And then Joel Embiid at center. So you're not looking at Thibault, having a strong offensive role. You're not looking at him having a starter's role. Just split him with James Harden and away from Joel Embiid. Keep it simple. Run it like that. And just kind of like how you would run Harden with like Montrezl Harrell. Like, you're not going to put Harrell and Embiid on the court at the same time, So if you're able to put like Harrell, I wonder how Harrell and Thibault would play at the same time. I don't have a lot of faith, a lot of hope in it. Just because, again, you're looking at the lack of spacing, but again, he shoots better with Harden too. So it's gonna take time. It's gonna be a process. It's not going to happen overnight for the Sixers. This is definitely a better team. It's gonna take time to figure out who runs better with who, and what the strategy is. Beginning game, end of game, depending on matchups, everything like that. So it's gonna be some time, but just be patient with guys like Thibault, guys who are looking to develop, because you got to see what the complete situation is. For Thibault, that mostly depends on how does he play with James Harden.
I agree. I definitely agree. And speaking of Thibault, we're talking about, Thibault, it was talks of him just, being traded or whatever, consolidation trade, things like that. But just, all the guys that play, we know guys are fighting for roster spots and fighting for rotation. I mean, I feel like we talked about this, like majority of the team besides Shake played well. And again, nothing against Shake, he just didn't play his best ball. But I mean, to me, I know you may feel differently, but I feel like Shake is solidified on the roster. I feel like Doc has a thing for Shake. Like when Doc first came, like he wanted to deploy Shake like Lou Williams. And it worked in the beginning, but Shake kind of got out of groove, and then last season he was injured. But it's just interesting to see these battles with like, specifically like Isaiah Joe and Trevor Queen, Charles Bassey, like all these guys seem to be on the cusp of making a roster. And last night I feel like majority of everybody did what they could to, try to stay in a race. But I do think Isaiah Joe's movement shooting is really a difference. And it will be the difference. I feel like Charles Bassey, it's probably the odd man out, like one of the odd men out, because you have Reed, you have Tucker, you have Harrell. Like, there's no reason to keep Bassey. I mean, you would hope that they would trade him instead of letting him go. And then I feel like Trevor Queen, as far as, signing him to that deal and, X amount of dollars being guaranteed, I feel like he didn't prove his opportunity in Summer League he just squandered it, in my opinion. And I feel like Isaiah Joe has such a good Summer League. And now, depending on the opportunities he had in preseason, I just feel like he's stepping above Trevor Queen. And Trevor Queen didn't necessarily show me, a lot in the Summer League. He had a lot of turnovers, trying to be flashy with the passes. I know he wants to be a playmaker, but I just, I just think that, right now, Joe is the leading candidate to stay on the roster. And then to me, as far as a rotation, like, it's really going to be interesting. Like, the team is very deep, and it's really going to be interesting to me to see where George Niang fits in this, because he has such a rapport with Harden. He has rapport with Embiid. Embiid likes George because when he passes to George, he shoots it like out of the post. I've literally seen Embiid post up and tell George to stay right there, and he's going to pass it right back to him. And George gets it, shoots it, and it goes in. So although George didn't have the best series playoff, he was, hampered with injury. He had a really good regular season, in my opinion. And I think situationally, I think George will be in the game. But it's good that you don't have, like, George became the sixth man, basically. And that's not his role. I feel like now him being the ninth man, 8th man, 10th man, whatever around that.
Huge
I feel like that's better for him. Less minutes and, more ability for him to not have to worry about necessarily being on the game for 27 minutes, guarding somebody, and then next thing you know, they ISO and George Niang. Like those are one of the things. But I do think it's interesting to see where he ends up in the rotation. But I do think he's going to play though.
Yeah. I think it was Kyle Neubeck who also said, that Isaiah Joe seems to be one of the favorites to make it out of all the players left. I think a lot of players made it tough last night. I think for the most part, everybody played well. And when you look at the later moments in the game, you had some guys who were playing against softer competition. You got to take that into account. But, when we look at everyone who's currently on the team, right, not counting Michael Foster Jr., they have to get rid of 2 more players, right? I think you're right about Trevlin Queen. I think he's going to kind of be one of the casualties. So that's part of it being the partially guaranteed contract, his level of play. Now he's got the recent injury. Who knows how bad that is? Hopefully not that bad. He's a guy who I could see the Sixers parting ways with, which would be a shame, but then could potentially latch back on a 2-way contract, for instance. Like Charlie Brown Jr. serves a purpose, and he was definitely helpful at times last season. Trevlin Queen could potentially play a similar role just as that, depth wing that you have. So you could go with Charlie Brown Jr. You could go with Trevlin Queen on the 2-way contract, either way. But Queen is a guy who I don't really expect to kind of make it past cuts. Again, we talked about Michael Foster Jr. He's probably moving on, or the Sixers rather are moving on from him. Now, will he take a 2-way spot? Will he just play for the Bluecoats? Who knows? But either way, I still think he has a future in Philadelphia. And then you look at, well, who from there? Isaiah Joe? Well, like you said, he had a strong summer league. He seems to be considered a favorite going forward. George Niang, he was like the 6th man last year. He's not going to have the same role that he had, like you said, because that's not the role he should play. But he expects to have some kind of role, especially when you're just looking to add shooters. Because George Niang is still one of the best shooters on this roster. So you're going to want to have him, or
Absolutely.
You're going to want to have the ability to play him should you need that shooting.
Absolutely.
So, I don't think Niang is going anywhere unless somebody in a trade wants him. That's kind of it. The Thibault, trade rumors, I don't think anything's going to happen with Thibault before the season starts. So when you're looking at guys that actually could be, you're looking at Charles Bassey, who showed himself that he looks like a legitimate backup center last night. Like, there definitely is a future. But if you're talking about playing Paul Reed and Montrezl Harrell as backups at the center, like, Bassey's not going to find playing time. That's just so. It's like, do you make him the 15th guy, or do you just get rid of him altogether? Like, that's kind of where you're at with Charles Bassey, and it's kind of a shame. You hope that he can continue to develop in Philadelphia. But he's already good is the thing. So maybe come next year, it's the kind of thing that can happen for him. But so really, I could see a pathway to them getting rid of Bassey. I think that you might be looking at the end of Shake Milton, if I'm being flat honest with you. I know it sucks to say. Like, I love Shake. I love the profile of player that he is. I love the person that he is even more. It's crazy to think about the fact that he could potentially be even just waived and just gone from the Sixers, but he's not a specialty player. He doesn't do one thing well, and he doesn't do all the other things well enough to really make an impact. Like, freaking Korkmaz separated himself last night from a lot of the other bench players. Isaiah Joe is even though he's streaky, he's a shooting specialist, right? With potential 3-and-D potential, or hopeful 3-and-D potential, I should say. Charles Bassey, strong backup center candidate. So you look at these guys and you think, and even Jaden Springer. Well, Jaden Springer was a first-round pick, very strong defender, offensive pit, absolute offensive nightmare. That's going to come in time. I still think he can develop it to a point where it is manageable. but you're not going to just cut Jaden Springer.
Right.
Shake Milton, who has a streaky shot, he does have good length, but he's not a great defender. He's not a great athlete. He's not a great facilitator. What does he do that makes him stand out?
I think the thing with Shake is, I think a few of the injury issues he had, but I think when Shake has been given an opportunity and not like pulled, I feel like Shake has played well for the Sixers. I mean, there was a point in time when Shake was the starting point guard going into the bubble, and then when Doc came, he was literally the starting point guard after all the Ben Simmons stuff, but he got hurt. And because it was like the first half, Shake would start with the starters, and then the second half would be Maxey, and then whatever Maxey wound up being, and that was for the best. But I think that Shake, like Doc, just has this trust in Shake, and I think that that's going to save him. And I think that Shake also played really well. Well, not really well, but he played well with James Harden off ball, specifically in the playoffs. Like Doc was like, "Yo, I could only go to Shake because off this roster right now, the only other guy that I have that can drive, pass, dribble, and shoot is Shake Milton." And I think the one thing is Shake's not a point guard. He played point guard. He can be a ball handler, but allowing Shake to really have to facilitate and stuff like that, I just don't think that was his role. So I think that with Shake, he's best suited as the off guard when he can shoot these corner threes or shoot open threes, pump fake and drive, get layups. I feel like that is the role for Shake. And I think that although I know Melton is going to have a lot of those backup minutes, I'm interested to see like if Shake can make a name for himself or just get a couple minutes a game, playing with Harden or whatever, Maxey or whatever. So it's interesting to see. I personally don't think Shake is a waive or cut candidate. But you never know. And we're talking about all this cutting stuff, and Morey probably has some trick up his sleeve where three of these guys are going and Jay Crowder is here or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's not common for Daryl Morey just to cut assets. So that's kind of the good thing about when you look at all these guys. Chevlin Queen probably you can say less so than anyone else. Though he was G League MVP last year. But you look at Charles Bassey, Isaiah Joe, Shake Milton. I will now add Jaden Springer in since we're talking about a trade. Again, even George Niang and of course Matisse Thybulle's been at the center of trade rumors. Yeah, there's a possibility for it, and you're probably looking at them trying to recoup some trade value for Matisse Thybulle. Apparently, part of the conundrum with trying to trade Matisse Thybulle is that his pending free agency is giving some teams pause, I should say. And so that makes a Thybulle deal a little tough. So maybe you just reach a point where you're like, well, we just got to, cut bait and do it. Or maybe you reach another point and you think, well, he's just more valuable to us on the court than he is in a trade. That you have to do that with every player, have that conversation, whether it's Matisse Thybulle, if it's Shake Milton, Isaiah Joe, Charles Bassey, Chevlin Queen, whatever the case may be, that's the kind of conversation you're having. And maybe you can sell a team on Jaden Springer after a strong preseason. That's still something that's possible. The tandem of Springer and Isaiah Joe. Maybe that's something that can kind of work in some draft pick value there. Maybe as you try and aim to potentially even restock a first round pick. I don't think you could get one for Springer or Joe, but you can kind of try and build value to the point where maybe you get a package of seconds, a fake first round pick, anything such as that, that has value, or just attaching them to salary, what little salary you have to trade and bringing in some other veteran. Again, you mentioned Jay Crowder. He's someone's mentioned a lot.
Right.
Reggie Bullock is like the infinite one-way trade rumor where Sixers fans, and I'm guilty of this too, nonstop talk about Reggie Bullock being traded to the Sixers, and it has never once been mentioned otherwise. It has never been mentioned about Reggie Bullock coming to Philadelphia, and yet all these rumors continue to happen. That's just because he's the perfect fit. Like even more than Jay Crowder, Reggie Bullock is a great fit.
Agreed.
You look at it, and it could be anyone. You need another, a potential backup guard. Especially since that Anthony Melton may not be exactly a point guard like at all. if you want a more traditional backup point guard, that's something that you potentially do. If you want to get like a TJ McConnell, if you want to get a Kemba Walker, if Detroit's not going to buy him out, whatever the case may be, like you send over multiple players to get that aggregate salary so you can bring that player back. So time will tell what exactly happens with it. But all in all, great first night of Sixers preseason. Up next, Wednesday night against the Cavaliers, first of 2 games against the Cavs.
Yep.
You think we're going to see some Donovan Mitchell?
I do.
Well, it'll be a lot of fun.
And I'm definitely curious to see this backcourt defensively.
Yeah. Yeah. Might be another 20-point first half for Tyrese Maxey. If he plays.
If he plays, right.
They might have seen all they need to see from Tyrese Maxey, and he might be done.
Right.
You never know.
Right.
So until then, everybody gear up for this Sixers season. Shout out to the Phillies for making the playoffs. Shout out to the Braves, or I should say not the Braves, the Brewers, I should say, for sucking along the way. And
shout out to the Marlins.
Chance after chance. Shout out to the Marlins,
who have ruined the Phillies
now
season.
Best buds with the Phillies, like the total like team bromance that was seen on Twitter and everything like that. So, with thank yous to Joe Girardi for leaving town, with thank yous to the Marlins, with thank yous to the Brewers for not knowing how to play baseball anymore. Which really, I think we got to go back to thanking the Phillies, because if it wasn't for who was it? It was Nick Maton, and who was the other one who hit a home run off of Josh Hader? Was it?
It was Baum and Vierling.
Oh, was it Vierling? Oh, okay,
yeah.
So Baum and Vierling, knocking off Josh Hader, completely ruining and derailing his career. He is completely finished. And the Brewers are also no good after that as well. Fell out of the division spot, fell out of the wild card spot. Absolutely nothing now for the Brewers. So it's a great sight to see. Go Phils, Red October's back. Go Sixers. Absolutely trounce the Nets. Gonna do the same to the Cavaliers. It's gonna be a great season. 4-0 Eagles, go Birds. Love it in Philadelphia. The Union are kicking ass too. Just a great time in Philadelphia. A great time in Philadelphia.
For sure.
But again, we are a Sixers pod. Let's look forward to Tyrese Maxey's incoming All-Star season, the hopeful MVP season for Joel Embiid, or more importantly, Finals MVP season for Joel Embiid, a return to the old James Harden, whatever that may look like. There's so many great storylines to pay attention to, but it's going to be a fun, long ride, and we're going to be here with you every step of the way. But for now, I'm Zach Chavalala. He's Justin Crosby, and we just hit you with the Baseline Scoop.
Peace.
It's 89-84. Sixers, and they get